Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's Career Chat. I'm Krista Harmon, one of the Career Readiness Consultants with the Kent Intermediate School District, and I am delighted to have Melissa Morris. She's an application system analyst with us today to share about her career. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, this half hour, we always have a lot of fun meeting our mentors and getting some of that inside scoop that students can't necessarily get easily on the internet. So Melissa, take us back. First, we'll find out more about your current role, but take us back to high school level. You know, were you thinking you'd grow up to be in the IT field? Tell us what your thought process was back then.
Back then, I remember I didn't even know computer science was a career path, or I didn't even know IT as an industry very well back in high school. I think my very first career aspiration was to be a marine biologist. And then it set in for me that I live in Michigan and nowhere near the ocean. And I had switched and set my sights on working for Pixar. I was really into computer animated movies, and I set my sights on being an animator at one of the studios out in California. And I remember being really passionate about art in high school. So I took a lot of 2D studio classes, 3D studio, and building things in 3D. And so I didn't really know about computer science until I was a senior in high school. I remember that we had to take a senior level math class, and I had a suggestion from a pre-calculus teacher that I should take AP computer science. And it was from that class where I really got exposure to the industry. And so I was really fortunate that my high school offered that type of opportunity for me to get involved in learning how to program. And from there, it kind of just built my passion. But it wasn't till much later that I started to work in the IT field.
So what I hear though is that computers were always kind of your friend, because I think there's some people who seem to connect easily with computers. I'm not one. I'm like the slowest texter, and it's hard for me. But for you, it sounds like that was pretty comfortable arena to be in, right?
Yes, I think I fall into the category of elder millennial. And so I know that technology had always been a part of education. I remember going to the computer lab in elementary school. But I was fortunate those opportunities for computer science classes were available by the time I was in high school.
That's awesome. So let me just ask a specific question around your AP computer science class. Did they make connections with local employers? Do you remember hearing guest speakers talk about the different roles? Is that what kind of blew it open for you, or was it the actual skill sets you were learning?
It was the skill sets. I remember learning Java as a computer science language, and that opening the doors to kind of learning, what could I do with this language? Okay, I could work on video game programming, or I could do other things with that sort of skill set. But I do remember I'm from the Metro Detroit area, and my high school worked closely with Macomb Community College. And so they did encourage us to reach out to the community college and some of the programs that they had.
So you're that great resource right in town. So here you are, you're just connecting really great with this Java language. And you mentioned that, you know, you're always kind of artistic and had maybe some of those skill sets too. And so this was giving you a vehicle to put some of those thoughts that you had in your head and create them, right?
Exactly.
Give us some examples of some of your projects back then. What do you remember first developing, or something that excited you?
I remember it was a project to create a little applet. So something that you would open like an app on your computer now, but it was very simple. I remember drawing a balloon on the screen, and there were buttons to move it up, down, left, and right. But it was really cool to kind of see the code become reality, something visual that you could actually interact with.
Yeah, I can imagine I'm not very artistic either. So your field is definitely not a good match for me, but I love people who have those skill sets. So you graduate from high school and you're like, really loving it. And then was that a pretty smooth decision of what to do for college, or did you have to really consider some different options? Because obviously you have several interests.
Yeah, I think it took a little bit of consideration. I wanted to move somewhere away from home just to get a different experience and kind of go away for college. So I remember researching Ferris State University. They have a digital animation and game design program. And they also have a summer camp. So any students interested in game design or computer animation, they are a great resource to first get involved. And they work closely. They are actually in the Grand Rapids Community College building in downtown Grand Rapids. And I also researched Grand Valley State University, where I ended up ultimately going for my bachelor's degree because of their film and video program.
I love it. So again, students, pay attention to what kind of opportunities are happening here in Grand Rapids area for summer camps, because it gives you a chance to kind of taste it out, test it out, I should say, or, take a taste of it. Did you do the summer camp, Melissa?
I did.
Yeah. Tell us about that experience. What'd you take from that?
So I do remember being in the Grand Rapids Community College building downtown. And like I said, my passion was really computer animation. So I remember using a tool, Adobe 3ds Max is a 3D modeling software. It's very similar to Maya, or there is free software called Blender that anyone can download if you want to try out 3D modeling, getting that exposure into animation. And so over the course of a couple of weeks, I was able to create a model, create a little animation, and be able to ask college level professors how to help me with that software and how to get started.
Yeah, that's such great advice from a career mentor to check out what free software are available and start playing around with it and developing. And you're really testing it out to see if you like it. And Blender, is that like BLENDR? I feel like I've seen that somewhere. Is it?
It's like spelled just like a kitchen blender.
Like the blender, so the ER, awesome. So you decided Grand Valley because they had a film and video program. And again, that Pixar goal was still on your mind at that point?
Yeah, so when I first entered college, that was on my mind. And I think very quickly in the first semester, I discovered that I wasn't getting that exposure to working with computers as much as I wanted. It was very much more physical camera and camcorder driven. And my passion was really using computer software. And so I switched my major to computer science. And from there, I took more coding classes, programming, continued to build Java skills. And from there, I found statistical programming. I think I had a couple of different shifts while I was in college, just following what classes I felt passionate about, ultimately landing with a degree in economics. But it was always statistics and being in computer science, those sort of passions that drove me.
I love that. I love that you're helping young people understand that it's not always just a straight arrow. Like you have this one goal, because you don't know what you don't know, right? You're starting to learn things in college that I didn't even know this existed, and I really like this.
Exactly.
Parents to encourage you? Did you end up having a mentor? Did you have career advisors? Who helped you kind of navigate some of that thinking?
Yes. So at Grand Valley, I had my major in economics ultimately, and it was the advisors in the Seidman College of Business at Grand Valley that really encouraged me to stick with economics and pursuing it as my major, because it was building critical thinking and analytical skills that could help me move in any sort of direction. So I liked that open-mindedness and just building on the skills that you felt were strongest in order to get out there and seek the career that you were looking for.
When you mentioned statistical programming, because I've never heard that term, was that something you found was one of your strengths? And tell us a little more about what that is.
Yeah, so in the economics program at Grand Valley, we would use software called Stata. There's also SAS, SAS, and SPSS. And so it's taking data and being able to create formulas and ways of outputting where you can visualize what you are discovering about a data set.
That's fascinating, actually, some of the ways that they can like you say, show data. My son loves that stuff right now. He just got a degree in economics as well. So you graduate then with a degree in economics, which again is not where you started. And so I love that. What was that transition going to work world? Did you have an internship? Did you do any more job shadows or conversations with adults? Tell us some of the things that you did that maybe might help young people.
I do remember doing one job shadow while I was in the computer science program at another local company called OST, Open Systems Technologies. And so I was able to job shadow a developer there. So I did have that experience before moving into my economics program. But after I graduated from economics, that's actually something that I wish I had done, is sought out an internship first or done more career interviews with potential employers, looking out what type of job titles I was looking for. But I was really searching out any opportunity for a data analyst position. And I had never really had the interest in banking or finance, but that is where I first found myself as a data analyst in the banking industry.
Yeah, that's where my son is right now. He's in a similar type environment, but I'm not sure that's the best fit for him either. So I'll definitely have to encourage him the kind of work you do. So that job shadow that you did at OST, is that something you did on your own? Did you call somebody and say, hey, can I do this? I want you just to kind of help young people understand how that goes.
I worked with a career advisor at Grand Valley State University who was able to have that connection with a former student from the computer science program. So those career advisors are great resources. They stay in touch with the alumni that have stayed in the area, like myself, working at local companies, and people that are willing to share their experiences and have you there. I remember being on site in the building. They had a shuffleboard inside. They had a really cool work environment that my career advisor did make sure I knew that that might not be where you first start as a job, somewhere with a shuffleboard table, and the freedom to, at that time, working from home was not as common. So they had a flexible work schedule where it could be in office or out. So I got to see a little bit more of maybe a mid-level career that I could aspire to reach for.
Yeah, please utilize, the career department at your college, young people, because it really is such a great resource. So you end up kind of in the banking finance area. So tell us some of those types of things that you had to do, and what was your job title, and then how does that morph to what you're doing now? Give us more details about your actual occupation.
Yeah, so I was working in the credit risk area, specifically with mortgages. So I remember I was a retail credit risk analyst when I first graduated with my economics degree. And with that role, I was primarily using just the mortgage loan origination system, which is just a fancy way of saying the system that collected all the information about housing that the bank was really helping people fund and purchase their homes through. So I would review things like appraisals for homes, going through and getting the data out of those and putting them into our system. And I used a lot of Excel spreadsheets. So that was a critical skill for my first job, was knowing how to use Excel and use Excel well to look at different data and create, graphics that would then go into reports that could go up to the CEO level. You're really being able to present the data that you have.
And was that something you learned when you got there, some of Excel, or had you already learned that in college? Or I want young people to know that sometimes you don't have to have everything perfectly learned, that you do learn that on the job sometimes.
Exactly. So the basic skills of Excel, I took classes in college for, but when you get to that job, they will tell you the ways that they use the tools so that you have some sort of basis on what they're expecting from you. So yeah, never fret when you start a new position. They will brief you on the expectations that they have.
Yeah, because I think there's a lot of anxiety for young people, like, how will I know how to do it, So I just like to normalize that sometimes.
Yes.
So when did you realize, man, this is fine and dandy, but this isn't really what I want to? And so how did your career path continue to go as you moved along? Tell us more.
Yeah, as I mentioned, I really liked programming, and I wanted to get more into application programming. So, Android and iOS apps. It's something that I got a taste for in college, but something that I wasn't actively doing because my job is primarily using spreadsheets and creating graphs and things like that. So I decided to go back to school, which was a decision that I had kind of weighed. I knew that I could learn programming on my own. There's a lot of free open source ways to learn different languages. But I decided that I really wanted the time to be able to focus, and working full time, going to school full time was not going to be ideal for me. So I ended up working part time while going to school full time. And I decided to go back to school at Grand Rapids Community College, and they had a program for graphics and web development. And when I reviewed the curriculum for that program, it just fit exactly what my passions were. It was front-end development, so I could really at that point relearn the tools like HTML and CSS and JavaScript. Some of your back-end development tools and languages like PHP. I remember learning Ajax, and that's just a bunch of acronyms for languages that exist out there. But also taking classes like photography and brushing up on those creative skills like 2D design.
Do you think people weren't hearing you, that artistic side of you, when you were talking with these adults who were guiding you? Were you minimizing that part of you? You know, looking back, would you have done something differently now that you know how much of that was really part of you?
I think so. Yeah, I think I was focusing on data analytics probably a little bit more than saying, you know, does this give me that opportunity to create things as much, be more visual.
Yeah, I just want to put that out there, not because every part of our education, nothing's ever wasted. Everything you learned in that first 4-year degree are part of your skill sets. But I guess I just want to, you know, help young people understand that there can be two parts of our brains, right? We can have that analytical side, but that creative side is just as valuable. So to honor that and find those things and opportunities where you can use both. Try not to push one away, because it's like, it's all what makes you you.
Exactly.
So you go to GRCC, you have this new graphics and web development. So what was your next step then? How did you take those new skills and put those towards a new job?
So I did learn from my first experience graduating college that this time I definitely wanted to take the time to do an internship. And luckily for me, it was also part of the program to do an internship in order to graduate with the associate's degree. So I sought out opportunities in the area, looking specifically for web development with some front-end development. So looking at UI, UX design, focusing on the user experience. And I found the web and mobile internship at Spectrum Health, working on what was previously My Health, which is now My Chart, the patient portal. So that is ultimately the internship that I was a part of, where I worked on a development team, learning the technologies that they were using, and really becoming involved. And through that IS internship, you get to learn a lot of different spaces at Spectrum Health. And so I'm very thankful for that opportunity.
Yeah, and just to catch an acronym, the IS stands for Information Systems, right? Which is a little different than Information Technology, but at Spectrum, that's what it's called. And I hear it's a pretty big department, Melissa, is that true?
Yes, our information services team has about 1,000 employees. It might be a little bit more now, but we are definitely a large team that is now supporting remote work. We support applications. There's information security that goes out for all the different roles that really anyone touching technology within Spectrum Health would have to do. And I got to job shadow a really interesting part of IS, which is our biomechanical and the team that supports the technology within the hospital system. So got to see technology that was in operating rooms and lots of cool devices that they support.
Yeah, I think some young people would be surprised that an employer actually allows employees to job shadow each other within the organization to help people understand that there's more possibilities, and it's a great retention strategy, right? Move them to different places. I love that you took advantage of that too. So yeah, you took this internship, but it translated into a full-time job, right?
It did. Yes.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So tell us, and I love that you shared some of the other things that your IS department does. Tell us what a typical day might be for you, if there is such a thing as a typical day.
My typical day involves probably more meetings than someone would expect working in IS, but is a lot of talking and planning the work that we are going to do and organizing which things are first in priority. And then it gets into working in the technology itself, but also working with my end users, so the people that are using software, and seeing if they have any issues, or educating them on what is new or what is currently in flight, or in progress. So there are emails that are always a part of the day, so you can structure your day any way that you'd like. We do have flexible hours, but typically want to be available in your 8 to 5 period, just so people can get a hold of you. But we have been working remotely since the start of the pandemic. So we've all transitioned to this work from home lifestyle. And I think what's unique about my role working with the healthcare software is that sometimes you do have to be flexible and work either early in the morning or late at night, so that you're not impacting the hospital staff that are working directly with the software in the ER. So we try to do some of those changes when it won't affect our staff as much.
Is that including things like updating software, for example? Is that what we're talking about? Those kind of things that you're doing to
Yes.
the computers?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
so
great.
we'll do some of those software updates and upgrades.
Yeah. And I love that you talked about, how much planning you're doing together as a team or talking. And the students learn about soft skills at school, and they're, doing group projects. Help us understand how teamwork and communication and even time management that they're trying to teach them in high school play out in your day to day. Is it important for them to really pay attention to those things?
It is huge. I would say time management, especially when you're tied up in meetings for the morning, you need to be able to plan which things you want to get done during the day and the hours that you're not in meetings and you're not collaborating. But being able to collaborate effectively, especially through this virtual platform right now, but if you're in a in-person meeting as well, knowing what information you need to be able to share and what's important to communicate out with the rest of your team so everyone's on the same page is truly key.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. Students love to know what your favorite part is and what your least favorite is as far as part of your job.
My favorite part is troubleshooting and coming up with creative solutions, and coming up with new functionality. So I think something that's unique about what I do is that I use the app that I work on. So when a new feature is available in the app, I can log in as myself and see it. And I know that I'm making a positive impact in our community, especially, during the pandemic and having virtual tools available to the public. And I think a flip side of that is, and a stressor that you accept going into the job, is knowing that things come up and you do have to be flexible. So, working on issues that have quick deadlines, and knowing that something has to be done by tomorrow, or making the time and managing your time in order to get things done in a certain way, that can be a stressful part, and having the skills to be able to have work-life balance.
And that's where I hope some of these career chats, Melissa, help young people kind of do some self-assessment. Like, man, I am a natural troubleshooter. I like to problem solve, or I love that I can see something tangible of my work, when I create it. There it is on the app, or I can handle changes. Like, that's how I roll. But for kids that are like, man, I really like things more structured and I don't like surprises. That's part of what these are all about, right? Helping them kind of start to say, man, this IT thing is I like, but that might not be the best thing for me. And maybe something that has more structure in my day where I'm not getting those surprises would be better for me. Where do you see your type of career evolving? What would you like the young people to know as far as the future of some of what you're doing?
So in IT and IS, so whether you're working in technology or information services, it's a rapidly evolving field. So something that stands out to me, and what I really want to give advice on, is your career might not exist right now. This is something where, as we see more technology pop up, you might be working on applications that don't exist yet, or companies that don't exist yet, and things that will be really revolutionary to how we do things. So with what we're doing right now, with our patient portal, telehealth has become a huge service to what we provide to patients. That was not the case, 10 years ago. So it's something that's always new and evolving, and just keeping your mind open and following the passions that you have in technology or otherwise. Really follow what you're interested in.
Are you getting enough of your creative side of your brain being used these days?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it all came together for you.
Yes. Yes.
That's awesome. I love it when I hear how different parts of our brains or interests and talents can come together. So it's great for young people to be encouraged to not to get caught up on the job title per se, but to be flexible and see what's going to evolve. Do you recommend that computer science degree? What would be some next steps as far as what kids should consider for the next level of education, or can they self-study? What would be some of your recommendations?
Yeah, and that's an interesting point, because like myself, I have an economics degree. I work with others that have degrees in biomedical neuroscience, political science, really anything across the board. So don't feel like a degree limits you to working in this field. But I say if you do have that strong desire to work in this industry, a degree in information systems, computer information systems, computer science, if you have the opportunity to go to a school that offers a health informatics degree, that will just help you kind of find your niche and find those skill specific if you're interested in working IS in healthcare, for example.
Yeah, and I think that's what's so great about having you today, Melissa, is you have a IT job in healthcare, and there's people who do IT in sports arenas. They do it in education. We have our whole IT, so it's really finding an area. People in the airlines, where they might get free travel as a perk, like it can be done in so many different ways. And I think that's an exciting thing about your particular field, is that there's so much potential.
Exactly.
I'm gonna let you think about a final word of wisdom as I show our students a resource that might be helpful to them as they do more research about these variety of jobs in the IT area. So let me just point out onnetonline.org. It's a government website that has hundreds and hundreds of jobs. And I love this website because it really helps young people explore. So up in that corner, I put in the word system analyst because that was part of your job title. And up popped all these related careers. And obviously the first one is what yours is. But look at all those other ones, young people. There's so many different names and nuances to some of this work that you can actually start clicking on these and reading about what a typical day is like, what kind of skills you need, what are some of the values people in these different jobs have, what kind of money they make, what kind of education's needed. And as you look at those with those yellow suns next to them, this is an area with a bright outlook. That's what that means. So this is definitely a field where there's gonna be lots of jobs. If you look about, I don't know, 10 or 12 down, this bioinformatics scientist, what is that? So this is a kind of tool, young people, you can use to explore, because again, you don't know what's out there. Take the time to do this kind of investigation for yourself. And so you can learn more and more, and then get that next step after high school as far as training. This is just an example of what some of this detail behind those, when you click, this was computer programmers. And again, there's some different job titles that they're called, the web applications programmer, the program analyst. And again, every employer is going to have that different terminology. But again, you can see all these different categories: work activities, wages, education, credentials. Let's talk about, before I give you your word of wisdom, Melissa, you were going to mention something about certificates. Is that a big deal in IS?
It can be. So in specific roles, whether that's job training that you're sent to by your employer, like it was for me, where I received a certification in the software applications that I work in, it's always something to keep in mind if you're going for a certain career in particular. So if you're interested in project management, look for different certificates or different classes that focus specifically on those skills.
That's great. Thank you so much. Well, it's 4:01. I kept you an extra minute. What kind of word of wisdom do you want to give these young people as we finish up?
I would definitely say look for those opportunities. Use those resources, use the people that you have as resources, reach out and ask questions. and do as many informational interviews as you can with the people that have roles in, especially the organizations that you're interested in. Don't be afraid to reach out and ask questions, because more people would be, excited to share than I think you would think. So,
Great.
yeah, follow your passions.
That's gold information right there, Melissa. Thank you for making time in your busy day to just share your insights and journey with us today. We really appreciate learning from you.
Well, thank you for having me, and good luck to everybody on their career journey.